All right, joined now by Trevor Sikkema. He is the lead draft analyst for PFF. And I was just reading one of your mock drafts that you made after the Super Bowl, where you actually have the Bears trading out of 10 to Cleveland for Myles Garrett.
Yes. Look, I think that would be a huge move for them. Obviously, everybody wants Myles Garrett, but I do think the Chicago Bears are positioned well enough to actually make a really good offer for him, and he'd fit perfectly, right? They're sitting here saying, hey, okay, maybe we do like what Austin Booker develops into, but if they can get Myles Garrett opposite Montez Sweat, they're catapulting themselves into that winning window, hoping that Caleb Williams takes that next step with Ben Johnson. So not every team, for as much as everybody would love a Myles Garrett, not every team is poised or in the right spot of their winning window to be able to do it. To me, the Chicago Bears absolutely are. And so if they have the chance to, it would take their first-round pick this year. It would take their first-round pick next year. But the whole hope is that if you're trading for a guy like Myles Garrett, if Caleb Williams is taking that next step, your first-round pick next year, you're hoping it's around 25, 28, or best-case scenario, 32, right? And so you have to take that into account as well. And Myles Garrett is still in his prime. He's got a pretty team-friendly contract if you trade for him, and he's exactly what they would need. It also frees them up to take offensive line, to go another direction when it comes to either the draft or free agency, things like that. So I would love that move. Chicago is one of my favorite landing spots for Myles Garrett.
All right, I'm going to take you off the draft for a second because you said you believe that the Bears are kind of in win-now mode. And we ask everyone, what's their window right now with Caleb Williams being in his second year, kind of starting over because he didn't have the true development year as a rookie?
Sure.
What do you feel like, looking at it from an outsider's perspective, their window is?
Yeah, so I think that they're at the beginning of what would be their winning window. And I know that last year was disappointing, but it was disappointing for a lot of reasons, and especially making a change, a big change in the coaching staff. It makes you feel as though, okay, we can separate ourselves a lot from what last year was. And so to me, the winning window really starts this season. You're hoping that they're going to bounce back just naturally, but Caleb taking that next step, being able to work with a guy who's been the most sought-after head coaching candidate for the last 2 to 3 years in Ben Johnson, I would say that certainly with Ben Johnson coming on and this being his first year there, the remainder of Caleb Williams' rookie contract, you want to have that winning window wide open. You want to be as all-in as possible before he signs that massive franchise quarterback type of a deal. So I would say the next 3 to 4 years, the Chicago Bears should be in a position where they are going all in. They're signing the free agents that they need to. They're getting aggressive in the draft. And obviously, the division was phenomenal last year. But I really believe that just sort of like the Vikings were last year, where they kind of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere because that sounds a little insulting, but like they really played above expectations. The Bears can absolutely be that team where you look at their record last year and their record in 2025 is going to look nothing like that, much more on the positive side of things. That's well within the realm of possibility when you look at the roster and how it's currently constructed.
I do want to go to the Abdul Carter news because he has a stress reaction, not going to get surgery. He'll be ready to go for his pro day at the end of March. But how do you think that affects his draft stock, if at all?
I really don't think very much. I really do think that the tape is king with him, especially the fact that he played through injuries this year and yet he still looked like the best edge rusher in the country. It was his first year playing as an edge rusher, and the NFL knows how athletic this dude is. I mean, Penn State's an unbelievable strength and conditioning program. They put out these just freak edge rushers, it feels like, all the time. Chop Robinson, Micah Parsons, obviously, just so many guys that have come through over the last 4 or 5 years. Abdul Carter is just another one of those players. And so I think the NFL has enough they have enough evidence behind them to say, yep, edge rusher from Penn State, he's going to be good to go. We don't have to worry about the testing. We know this guy's going to be really athletic. So to me, I don't think it's really going to hurt his chances that much. I still think he's got every chance as anybody to go even number 1 overall.
Even if the Bears remain at 10, I think people are hopeful that they go offensive line and start stockpiling these guys, especially given the history of Ben Johnson and what he had available to him on his O-line in Detroit. Will Will Campbell be someone that could potentially fall because of the quote-unquote short arms that he's going to have or something like that?
I love Will Campbell. He's one of my favorite offensive linemen in the class. I think I'm going to have him as my top offensive lineman overall. I can understand people might look at him and say, okay, he's not an offensive tackle, but for the Chicago Bears specifically, one of the mock drafts that I had previously done, I had them taking Campbell at 10, and I wrote in my little blurb, what I love the most about this is I actually think he could play center for the Chicago Bears. And do you take a center at number 10 overall? Okay, maybe not, so that sort of goes into it, but think about it like this. They've got some money to spend. They can go out and get an additional guard in the pro market in free agency. So then you've got the 2 offensive tackles that you like. You're throwing in another guard. Maybe you bring back one of the 3 guys that they have as their free agents. And then if you put Will Campbell at center, all of a sudden that is a totally new look offensive line that you feel great about. Will Campbell, normally when you get offensive linemen, it's always the center that's making the calls. If they're going to make the call on the offensive line of sliding protection and noticing where the blitz is coming from, it often comes from the center. I'm watching film of LSU, and Will Campbell as the left tackle is the one who looks behind him, and he's telling the running back, hey, this guy's coming from over here. We need to slide protection this way. So, he's just such a smart offensive lineman that I'd love to have him in the center of that Chicago Bears offensive line to build around him and the rest of those guys for a long time. So I do love Will Campbell for Chicago.
I think Bears fans will be interested in that because of how much was put on Caleb Williams as a rookie to handle a lot of the protections on the offensive line. Having a Coleman Shelton, we can talk about what Ryan Poles has done in free agency with the offensive line all day long. What about someone like Booker or Banks and those other guys who maybe have some position flexibility as well?
Absolutely. Obviously, with the guys that they have upcoming on their unrestricted free agent list who, along the interior offensive line, could no longer be there, they could have a lot of roles that they need to fill, whether it's a center, whether it's guard, whether it's both guard spots. And so, look, Tyler Booker, he is one of those players from Alabama who Alabama speaks so highly of him. And he is somebody who does his job very, very well. Specifically, it kind of depends on what the Bears want to run and what Ben Johnson wants to run when it comes to their run scheme. A lot of teams in the NFL, we talk about, okay, this is a zone running team, this is a man gap running team. The fact of the matter is they're going to run both. Either it's, a 70-30 split, a 60-40 split. But if they want more power, if they want to run between the tackles a little bit more, Tyler Booker's perfect for it. If they want to run more zone stuff, getting out towards the edges, especially those mid and outside zone runs, Kelvin Banks Jr. has that athleticism to be able to do it. So it all just kind of depends what Ben Johnson wants to set up as his initial run game scheme for this team. But there's no doubt they will have the opportunity to pick an interior offensive lineman, whether it's at 10 or even further down the draft, that fits whatever they're trying to allow their run game to be.
With 4 picks in the top 75, is it out of this world to think they might be going after a tight end or a running back in maybe the second round?
Okay, so it's a really good running back class.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good running back classes for them to choose from. And with them having those 4 picks, when I run those 3-round mock draft simulations on our PFF mock draft simulator, there have been times when I've given the Bears a running back, even one of the best running backs, say an Omarion Hampton from UNC in the second round, or a Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State in the second round. And I still I still get them like an interior offensive lineman or something like that. And Bears fans will be like, we can't be spending an early pick on one of those running backs. And I was like, okay, but he's good. Like, you look at the whole draft that I put together. So no, I don't think that it's out of the question. I feel like I'm leaning more towards them being open to take a running back, because I know a lot of people point to this, but it's true. Look at what Ben Johnson was able to do with just such a great running back duo of David Montgomery, and specifically what Jahmyr Gibbs was. If they feel like they have an athlete caliber of Jahmyr Gibbs, I think that Ben Johnson's going to be in on it. So whether that's in the second round or the third round, I don't think it's out of the question for them to take a running back there.
Before we let you go, can you give me one offensive lineman and one defensive lineman that maybe people don't know about right now, but you think coming out of the combine, their draft stock will go up big time?
Okay, so the first one that comes to my mind is Charles Grant from William & Mary. Forgot his first name.
Yeah.
Trying to remember a million prospects. Charles Grant from William & Mary. He's an FCS guy. He played offensive tackle for them. He's a little bit longer. He's got the frame to be able to play offensive tackle, but I wonder if he could even be a guard or center at the NFL level because of how well he moves. And the reason why I think that he's going to stand out here at the Combine is he reportedly has some fantastic agility and short area explosiveness drills, which are a big deal when you're playing offensive line, getting out of your stance. Again, if they want to be more of a zone blocking team, those guys that can get out of their stance very quickly, get to those landmarks when it comes to mid and outside zone, he is somebody to watch for that I think Chicago could have their eye on there. And then a defensive lineman, oh, man, who's somebody along? You know what? I'll go with Omar Norman-Lott. He's one of my favorite guys in this class. Defensive tackle for the Tennessee Volunteers. Somebody who won't have a lot of volume stats, but the efficiency for when he was on the field and the disruption that he was able to make when he was out there was so high. And so I know the interior defensive line is sort of coming along in Chicago, but he's got so much juice as a pass rusher, great first step explosiveness. I think he could have great explosive numbers when it comes to the 10-yard split, the vertical jump, the broad jump. And he's somebody who maybe a pass rush specialist, but somebody who I think could actually fit in Chicago very well.
When's the next mock draft coming out?
It'll be out on Monday. Post-Combine
All right,
mock always comes out the Monday after the Combine's over.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it anytime.